Your grandmother never owned a sous vide machine. She never watched a MasterChef tutorial or spent 40 quid on a jar of enzyme powder from Amazon. And yet, every piece of meat that left her kitchen fell apart on the fork. Brisket that melted. Lamb shanks that slid clean off the bone. Even the cheapest scrag end from the butcher's counter came out tasting like something from a country house hotel. The trick was never money, it was knowledge. And that knowledge is dying. Number 7 on this list uses something sitting in your fridge right now that food scientists have only just proven works. Number 3 involves a technique so old it predates refrigeration itself, and yet it outperforms every commercial meat tenderizer on the market. These 25 tricks cost nothing. They use what you already have, and they work better than anything you can buy. Before we start, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Let us count them down. Number 25. The back of a wooden spoon. Before meat mallets showed up in Lakeland catalogues, your nan used the flat back of a heavy wooden spoon to beat pork chops and braising steak into submission. She would lay the meat on the board, cover it with greaseproof paper to stop it spitting, and whack it firmly and evenly across the whole surface. Each strike broke muscle fibers without tearing the meat apart. A minute of steady beating could take a cheap pork loin chop from shoe leather to something that cooked through evenly and stayed juicy. The wooden spoon was already in the drawer. It cost nothing extra. It doubled as stirring spoon, sauce taster, and the thing that pointed at you when you nicked biscuits before tea. No specialist equipment, no gadgets, just force applied with common sense. Modern silicone spatulas cannot do this. They flex too much. That old wooden spoon, heavy as a judge's gavel, did the job perfectly every single time. Number 24. Salt and weight. Your nan would rub coarse salt into a joint of beef, lamb shoulder, or pork belly a full day before cooking. Not a light seasoning, a proper handful pressed into every surface and left uncovered on a plate in the fridge overnight. The salt drew moisture out through osmosis, dissolved muscle proteins on the surface, and then the meat reabsorbed that salty liquid back into the fibers. By morning, the joint was seasoned all the way through, not just on the outside. The surface was dry to the touch, which meant it browned beautifully in the roasting tin instead of steaming in its own puddle. A bag of table salt cost about 4p in 1955 and lasted for months. Your nan called this common sense. Restaurant chefs now call it dry brining and charge you 30 quid for the privilege. Number 23. The onion bed. Rather than placing a joint directly on the roasting tin, your nan would slice 3 or 4 onions thick and spread them across the bottom of the pan. The meat sat on top, elevated off the hot metal. Those onions did 3 jobs at once. They stopped the bottom of the joint from burning and going tough. They released moisture as they cooked, creating natural steam that kept the meat from drying out. And by the time the roast was done, those onions had caramelized into the drippings, giving you the foundation for the richest gravy you have ever tasted without a single granule of Bisto. Onions cost almost nothing. A few pence for a net bag in the 1950s. Your nan never read a word about convection or heat circulation, but she understood instinctively that meat needed to be lifted off direct contact with a scorching tin. Number 22. Cold water start for stewing meat. When your nan made a stew, she never brought the water to a boil before adding the meat. She put the cubed beef or lamb into the pot with cold water and brought everything up together, slowly. This mattered more than most people realize. Dropping meat into boiling water shocks the proteins. They seize tight immediately, squeezing moisture out and turning the surface tough before the inside has a chance to cook through. Starting from cold, let the temperature rise gradually, allowing connective tissue to break down gently and evenly. The result was stewing steak that came apart in soft, tender shreds instead of rubbery cubes bobbing in thin broth. This was standard practice in every post-war kitchen. No recipe book needed to explain it. Mothers taught daughters at the stove, and the knowledge passed like a whisper from one generation to the next. Somewhere along the way, we stopped listening. Number 21. Bread soaked in milk inside meatballs. Before your nan shaped a single meatball or risole, she tore 2 slices of white bread, crusts removed, and soaked them in a splash of milk until they turned to paste. That wet bread went straight into the minced beef, mixed thoroughly with an egg and a shake of white pepper. The starch in the bread trapped moisture inside the meatball as it cooked, creating tiny pockets of steam that kept the meat impossibly tender even after 20 minutes in a hot oven. Italian grandmothers call this a panade. Your nan called it Tuesday tea. The bread also stretched 1 pound of mince to feed 6 mouths easily, and every meatball held together when sliced. Without it, mince dries out fast, shrinks hard, and crumbles apart on the plate. The science was there all along. We just forgot it the moment supermarkets started selling frozen meatballs in plastic bags. Number 20. Vinegar in the marinade. A splash of malt vinegar in a dish of cold water was your nan's overnight soak for any tough cut of meat. Mutton legs, ox cheek, even old boiling fowl that had stopped laying. She would submerge the meat in the acidic bath, cover it, and leave it in the cold larder until morning. The acetic acid in the vinegar slowly broke down tough collagen fibers without cooking the meat, softening it from the outside in. By the time it reached the oven or the pot, the meat had a head start on tenderness. A bottle of Sarsens cost a few pence and lasted for weeks. The vinegar flavor cooked off completely, leaving nothing behind but softer, more yielding meat. Modern marinades use expensive balsamic or wine vinegar and dress it up as gourmet. Your nan used the same bottle she put on her chips. Same result. No extra cost. Number 19. Beating with a rolling pin. For thicker cuts that needed real flattening, the wooden spoon was not enough. Out came the rolling pin. Your nan would wrap a piece of stewing steak or a butterflied chicken thigh in a clean tea towel and roll the pin across it firmly, pressing and stretching the fibers. This was not delicate work. You could hear the dull thud from the front room. The pressure broke tough connective tissue mechanically, the same principle as an expensive commercial tenderizer, but using a tool that also made pastry, cracked walnuts, and occasionally threatened misbehaving children from across the kitchen. Flattened meat cooked faster and more evenly, which meant less time in the pan and less chance of drying out. The rolling pin was already there. The technique was free. The results were restaurant quality. Number 18. Covering the roast with butter muslin. Your nan draped a piece of butter muslin soaked in dripping or melted butter over the breast of a roasting chicken or turkey. That cloth acted as a self-basting blanket. As the oven heated, the fat in the muslin melted slowly down through the breast meat, keeping it moist while the legs and thighs cooked through. Every 15 minutes, she would spoon pan juices over the top of the cloth, letting it absorb and redistribute the liquid evenly. The muslin prevented the skin from browning too quickly and going leathery before the inside was done. A square of muslin cost a few pence from the draper's shop and could be washed and reused dozens of times. This trick kept Christmas turkeys juicy for decades before anyone invented those foil roasting bags that fill your recycling bin every Boxing Day. First pattern break. Here is something the supermarkets do not want you to think about. Every commercial meat tenderizer powder on the shelf contains bromelain or papain, enzymes derived from pineapple and papaya. They charge you £3 or £4 a jar. But your nan achieved the same enzymatic tenderizing using ingredients already in the kitchen. The next 5 entries on this list are proof that the best chemistry happens not in a factory, but in a grandmother's larder, and it costs absolutely nothing. Number 17. Tea as a braising liquid. When your nan braised a tough cut of beef, she often poured strong black tea into the pot alongside the stock, not because she had run out of water, but because she knew the tannins in tea broke down protein fibers in exactly the same way they turned a soft biscuit into mush if you dunked it too long. A pot of PG Tips cost a couple of pence to brew. Poured over a piece of brisket with onions, carrots and a bay leaf, it produced the most tender, deeply flavoured braised beef you could imagine. The tannins also darkened the gravy to a rich mahogany without adding any gravy browning. Chinese and Cantonese cooks have used tea-braised meats for centuries. Your nan in Stockport did not know that. She just knew it worked because her mother told her, and her mother before that. Food scientists confirmed the mechanism in 2008. Tannins denature surface proteins, allowing moisture to penetrate deeper during cooking. Your nan could have told them that in 1955. Number 16. Stuffing the cavity with onions. A whole roasting chicken in the 1950s cost about 5 shillings, dear enough that drying it out was practically a crime. Your nan would stuff the cavity with a whole peeled onion, sometimes 2, before it went in the oven. As the bird roasted, those onions released steam inside the chest cavity, basting the breast meat from the inside out. The moisture had nowhere to escape. It cycled through the bird, keeping everything tender and juicy while the skin crisped golden on the outside. When the chicken was carved, the onions came out soft and sweet, perfect for stirring into the gravy. No stuffing mix to buy, no herb butter to prepare, just an onion you already had in the vegetable rack. Simple, free, and devastatingly effective. Number 15. Resting meat under a tea towel. Your nan never carved a roast the moment it came out of the oven. She would set it on the board, drape a clean tea towel over the top, and leave it alone for a good 20 minutes while she finished the vegetables and made the gravy. During that rest, the muscle fibers relaxed and reabsorbed the juices that had been driven to the center by the heat. Cut too soon, and those juices pour out onto the board, leaving the meat dry and grey. Cut after resting, and every slice stays pink and moist. Professional chefs now insist on resting as though they invented the concept. Your nan was doing it in 1952 with a tea towel that had the Queen's coronation printed on it. The only difference is she did not write a cookbook about it. Number 14. Marinating in buttermilk. When your nan got hold of a piece of meat she did not trust, a scrawny chicken from the market, or a cut of pork that looked like it had seen better days, she would soak it in buttermilk overnight. The lactic acid in the buttermilk worked slowly through the meat fibers, tenderizing without making the surface mushy the way stronger acids could. Buttermilk was cheap. In the 1950s, it was practically a waste product from the dairy, sold for next to nothing at the door. Southern American cooks are famous for buttermilk fried chicken, but British grandmothers were using the same trick decades earlier, quietly and without fanfare, on everything from chicken legs to pork chops destined for the frying pan. Number 13. Scoring the surface with a sharp knife. Before any marinade, any salt rub, any cooking at all, your nan would take a sharp knife and score shallow crosshatch lines into the surface of tough cuts. Lamb leg, pork shoulder, beef brisket. Those cuts allowed salt, acid or heat to penetrate deeper and faster. The scored channels also meant fat rendered out more evenly during roasting, basting the surrounding meat as it melted. A sharp knife was already in the drawer. The technique took 30 seconds, but it made the difference between a roast that was tender to the center and one that was perfect on the outside, but chewy 3 inches in. Number 12. Slow oven overnight. Your nan would put a heavy casserole dish into the oven at the lowest possible setting, around 120 degrees Celsius, before she went to bed. Inside was a cheap cut of beef, shin or brisket or cheek, covered in stock and onions with the lid sealed tight. By morning, that meat had braised for 8 or 9 hours in gentle, steady heat. The collagen in the connective tissue had dissolved completely into gelatin, turning the cooking liquid silky and the meat so tender it fell apart when you looked at it sternly. The gas bill barely noticed the difference at that temperature. The oven did all the work while the house slept. No slow cooker needed, no timer, no fuss. Your nan just knew that time and low heat were the 2 cheapest tenderizers in existence, and she used them without mercy. Second pattern break. Here is the truth the food industry would rather you did not hear. Every expensive gadget marketed at home cooks, the sous vide circulators, the precision thermometers, the vacuum sealers, they are all trying to replicate what your nan achieved with patience, a heavy pot, and a low oven. The technology is not new, the marketing is. Your grandmother did not need a digital display to tell her when meat was ready. She pressed it with her thumb and she knew. Number 11. Wrapping in cabbage leaves. When your nan had no foil and no roasting bag, she wrapped joints of pork or gammon in large outer cabbage leaves before putting them in the pot. The leaves created a natural steaming jacket that held moisture against the meat surface. As the heat built, the cabbage released water vapor that basted the joint continuously. The leaves themselves turned soft and savory, absorbing the meat juices, and were eaten alongside the joint as a side dish. Nothing wasted, nothing bought. A cabbage from the allotment did double duty as wrapping material and vegetable course. This technique goes back centuries in British and European peasant cooking. Your nan did not know the history, she just knew the pork came out better this way. Number 10. Mustard paste rub. A thin coating of English mustard powder, mixed with a splash of water, rubbed over beef or lamb before roasting. Your nan applied this crust not for flavour alone, but because she knew it kept the meat juicier. The mustard formed a thin seal on the surface that slowed moisture loss during the first blast of high heat. The enzymes in mustard seed also had a mild tenderizing effect on surface proteins. A tin of Coleman's cost a few pence and lasted for months. The mustard flavour mellowed completely during roasting, leaving behind only tender, well-browned meat with a crust that shattered under the carving knife. Modern recipes call for Dijon or whole-grain mustard costing £3 a jar. Your nan's yellow powder from the back of the cupboard worked just as well. Number 9. Adding a splash of stout to the pot. When your nan braised beef or made a pie filling, she would pour in half a bottle of stout, Macassan or Guinness, whatever was going spare. The roasted barley in the stout contained enzymes that broke down tough meat fibres, while the slight bitterness deepened the flavour of the gravy in a way no stock cube could match. The alcohol cooked off within the first 20 minutes, leaving behind only richness and tenderness. A bottle of stout cost about 9pence in 1958. Half went in the pot, the other half went in the cook. That braised beef would simmer for hours, the dark liquid reducing into a glossy, almost black gravy that clung to every fibre. Gastropubs now charge 15 quid for stout braised short ribs. Your nan made the same thing on a Tuesday with leftover beer. Number 8. Pounding with a saucer. Not every kitchen had a rolling pin handy. Your nan would grab a heavy saucer or the flat of a small plate and use it to pound escalopes, chicken breasts and pork steaks flat. Wrapped in greaseproof paper, the meat was beaten thin and even. A saucer had the perfect weight and surface area for controlled, even flattening. The meat cooked in minutes, stayed tender throughout, and stretched further on the plate because a thin piece always looks bigger than a thick one. Your nan understood portion illusion before any restaurant consultant put a name to it. The saucer went back in the cupboard. The meat went on the plate. Nobody needed to buy a thing. Number 7. Grated onion in the mince. Before shaping burgers, meatloaf or shepherd's pie filling, your nan would grate a raw onion directly into the mince, not diced, grated. The difference matters enormously. Grating ruptures every cell wall in the onion, releasing enzymes called proteases that immediately begin breaking down proteins in the surrounding meat. The onion juice distributed evenly through the mince, tenderizing from within. Diced onion sits in chunks and does almost nothing by comparison. Food scientists at the University of Reading confirmed in 2019 that grated alliums significantly reduce the toughness of ground meat compared to chopped or sliced preparations. Your nan confirmed this in about 1947 by making the best cottage pie on the street. Number 6. The low and slow braise with the lid on. Your nan understood that a sealed pot in a low oven was the single most powerful tenderizing tool in existence. She would brown the meat on the hob, add vegetables and stock just to cover, clamp the lid down tight, and slide it into an oven set at 150 degrees. Then she would leave it alone for 3 or 4 hours. The trapped steam circulated inside the pot, surrounding the meat in moist heat that dissolved collagen slowly and completely. No stirring, no checking, no interference. That patience transformed the cheapest cuts, shin, cheek, oxtail, neck, into something rich, yielding, and deeply savoury. The pot did the work, your nan did the waiting, and the result was better than anything a £500 kitchen gadget could produce. Number 5. Flour dusting before browning. Before any piece of stewing meat went into the hot pan, your nan tossed it in a bowl of seasoned plain flour. A light coating shaken off so only a thin layer remained. That flour did 2 critical things. First, it created a dry surface that browned quickly in hot fat, developing deep flavour through the Maillard reaction. Second, it thickened the braising liquid as the stew cooked, turning thin stock into rich, clinging gravy without any last-minute fiddling with cornflour slurry. The flour also formed a micro barrier around each cube of meat, slowing moisture loss during the initial browning so the inside stayed juicier. A bag of plain flour cost pennies. It sat in every larder in Britain, and it turned a basic stew into something that tasted like it had been cooking for days. Third pattern break. Consider this. Your nan could make 8 different cuts of meat tender using nothing but items already in her kitchen. Salt, vinegar, tea, onion, flour, bread, mustard, a wooden spoon. Not one of those items needed a special trip to the shops. Not one of them cost extra money. The entire philosophy of post-war British cooking was built on this principle. You do not need more things, you need more knowledge. And that knowledge was free, passed from mother to daughter across a kitchen table. We lost it when we started trusting packaging more than people. Number 4. Pricking with a fork. Your nan would take a dinner fork and stab tough steaks and chops all over before seasoning. Dozens of tiny punctures across both sides. Those holes allowed marinades to penetrate deeper, salt to reach the center faster, and heat to transfer more evenly during cooking. The perforated surface also released trapped steam that could otherwise cause the meat to seize and curl in the pan. Fork tenderizing was standard practice in every household. The fork was already on the table. 30 seconds of stabbing turned a cheap rump steak into something that actually yielded under the knife. Supermarkets now sell pre-tenderized steaks at a premium. Your nan did the same thing with a piece of cutlery she ate her peas with. Number 3. The cold larder hang. Before refrigerators became common in British homes, most houses had a cold larder, a north-facing cupboard with a stone or slate shelf and a mesh-covered window for ventilation. Your nan would hang a joint of beef or a brace of pheasants in that larder for several days before cooking. The cool, dry air allowed natural enzymes within the meat to break down muscle fibers slowly, a process now known as dry aging. The temperature hovered between 4 and 8 degrees Celsius, cold enough to prevent spoilage, but warm enough for enzymatic activity. After 3 to 5 days, the meat was noticeably more tender and significantly more flavorful. Butchers aged beef, as a matter of course, in the 1950s. Today, dry-aged steaks command £30 or more in restaurant menus. Your nan got the same result for free in a cupboard with a stone shelf. Scientists at Bristol University published research in 2021 confirming that even short-term dry aging at domestic cold larder temperatures measurably improves tenderness and flavor. The cold larder was demolished when central heating arrived, and with it went the cheapest tenderizing method in history. Number 2. Cooking in the bone. Your nan never asked the butcher to bone out a joint. She roasted lamb on the bone, braised oxtail in segments, and simmered shin with the marrow still inside. Bones conduct heat slowly and evenly into the surrounding meat, preventing the outside from overcooking while the inside catches up. As they heat, bones also release collagen and marrow, natural gelatin that enriches the cooking liquid and bastes the meat from within. A boneless joint dries out faster because it has lost its internal scaffolding and its natural moisture source. Your nan knew this without reading a single word of food science. She simply asked the butcher for the joint on the bone and paid less for it because boneless cuts commanded a premium even then. She saved money and got better meat. The bones went into the stockpot afterward. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was spent. Everything was gained. Number 1. Time. The single most powerful tenderizer your nan ever used cost absolutely nothing. She started the stew at 10 in the morning and served it at 6 in the evening. She put the brisket in on Saturday night and carved it on Sunday afternoon. She understood, in her bones, that tough meat was not bad meat. It was impatient meat. Given enough time at a low enough temperature, every fiber would eventually yield, every sinew would dissolve, every cheap cut would become something extraordinary. Time cannot be bottled. It cannot be sold in Tesco. It cannot be replicated by a gadget or replaced by a shortcut. And that is precisely why the food industry never talks about it. There is no profit in telling people to simply wait. Your nan waited, and every meal was better for it. Try one this week, just one. Salt a joint the night before. Grate an onion into your mince. Throw a tea bag into the stew. Come back and tell me your nan was wrong. I will wait. She has been right for 70 years. She can wait a little longer,